हरिः ओम् नमः सर्वेभ्यः। अष्टाध्यायी परिचयः इत्यस्य अद्य 32 पाठः। अस्मिन् वर्गे अच् सन्धौ एकादेशस्य सूत्राणि पठामः। प्रारम्भे वन्दनम्। शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। येनाक्षरसमाम्नायमधिगम्य महेश्वरात् कृत्स्नं व्याकरणं प्रोक्तं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः। वाक्यकारं वरर्षिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनिं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयम्। अस्माकं वर्गस्य द्वे प्रयोजने अष्टाध्याय्याः आहत्य 600 सूत्राणां व्याख्यासहितम् उदाहरणसहितं च अध्ययनं, तथा च अष्टाध्याय्याः प्रथमाध्यायस्य प्रथमपादस्य द्वितीयपादस्य च कण्ठस्थीकरणम्। ह्यस्तनवर्गे अस्माभिः अच् सन्धि प्रकरणस्य अध्ययनं प्रारब्धम्। तत्र अच् सन्धेः विषये ये केऽपि विषयाः दृष्टाः तस्मिन् सन्दर्भे तस्य किञ्चित् पुनरावर्तनं कुर्मः। तत्र अच् सन्धिविधायकानि सर्वाणि अपि सूत्राणि षष्ठाध्यायस्य प्रथमे पादे संहितायाम् इत्यस्मिन् अधिकारे पाठितानि वर्तन्ते। अयम् अधिकारः 61157 पारस्करप्रभृतिनीचसंज्ञायाम् इति यावत् प्रचलति। अस्मिन् अधिकारे आदौ कानिचन सूत्राणि पूर्वादेशस्य सन्दर्भेण सन्ति। सो 6173 छे च इत्यस्मात् आरभ्य 6183 भय्य प्रवय्ये च छन्दसि. All these sutras are in the context of Purvadesha. If you go to the website, you have Samhitayam, this is the Adhikara, and then starting from this Checha all the way up to Bhayya Pravayyecha Chandasi, this is all Ekadesha. Some of the sutras were studied in the yesterday's class. The three ekadeshas that are given in this particular prakaranam, Tugagamaha, Yanadesha, and Yantavantadesha, etan vishayan vayam purvasmin pathe apatama. What we are going to start today is the next section, the ekadesha in case of ach sandhis. This entire ekadesha is captured in the adhikara called ekaha purva parayoho. So there is already a Samhita Adhikara running. Inside the Samhita Adhikara, there is another Adhikara called Ekaha Purva Prayoho. Ita arabhya Ruta Uta iti yavat yakkopi adesha uchyate saha Purva Parayoho Ubhayoho sthane Ekadesha Rupena vidhiyate. So X and Y both change and something is created in place of X and Y. When we say X and Y, it is the last letter of the Purva Pada and the first letter of the Uttara Pada. So, Ekaha Purva Parayoho iti Ekadeshadhikaraha. It runs till Ruta Uta. There are 5 different Ekadeshas that are discussed in this particular section. We are going to study some sutras of each of them. We are not going to study all of them in full details. As I mentioned yesterday, this is just an introductory course. So, we will skip Vartikas, we will skip some of the remote sutras. Major sutras we are going to study. So these sutras can be classified into 5 important types of ekadeshas. By the way, there is another word in Sanskrit called ekadesha. There is a specific meaning to that word ekadesha, and I have seen students mixing up these two words. So don't use the word ekadesha. I might have told this earlier at some point in time, but let me repeat again. Use the word ekadesha. Eka plus adesha is ekadesha. So pancha ekadeshaha pathyante. You have guna ekadeshaha, you have vriddhi ekadeshaha, pararupa ekadeshaha, savarna dirgha ekadeshaha, and purva rupa ekadeshaha. So these are the ekadeshas that we are going to study in today's class. All of these are going to be studied in today's class. So etan vishayan adya pathamaha. And then towards the end of that Samhitadhikara, there are a few sutras where Prakruti Bhavasya Vishaye Niyamaha Uktaha Santi. Prakruti Bhava ityukte ach sandhi vishishteshu sutreshu satsu api samhitayam satyam ityukte samhitayaha vivakshayam api sandhi karyam na bhavati. So all conditions are satisfied, but sandhi doesn't happen because there is a prohibitory rule over there. So that is called Prakruti Bhava. Prakriti Bhava is going to be the topic of our next class. So let's start. So this is the green colored stuff is what we have already studied. Let us go to the next one. Adya Adhiyamanani Sutrani. So we are going to learn the Ekaf Purva Parayoho, which is basically the Adhikara. Then we are going to talk about one sutram on Purva Rupa Ekadesha, one sutram on Guna Ekadesha, one sutra on Savarna Dirgha Ekadesha, one sutra on Pararupa Ekadesha, and then three sutras on Vriddhi Ekadesha. So as I mentioned, there are 5 different Ekadeshas. We are going to study one sutra for most of the Ekadeshas, except for Vriddhi Ekadesha, we are going to study 3 different sutras because they are intermixed with the other sutras in form of Utsarga and Apavada. Therefore, it makes sense to learn these 3 sutras for Vriddhi Ekadesha, whereas only one sutra for the other types of Ekadeshas. Let's start with the details. In the previous class, we said that Ach Sandhi is where Purva Varnaha Ach Varnaha asti, Para Varnaha Hal Varnaha pi bhavitum arhati, Ach Varnaha pi bhavitum arhati. And as an example, we have seen this particular sutram called Checha, where the Paravarnaha Chakaraha asti chedapi tatra Tugagamaha vidhiyate. So except for these corner cases like Checha, when you look at the sutras of Ekadesha in particular, when we are talking about Ach Sandhi, it is always Ach Varna plus Ach Varna. So even though the definition of Ach Sandhi does not require Ach Varna to be the para, for the context of Ekadesha sutras, the Ek of Purva Parayoho Adhikara, we can simply safely say that Ach Sandhi in this particular context is Ach Varna plus Ach Varna. Therefore, let us focus on that type of sandhis which are Ach Varna plus Ach Varna. So there is a Purva Varna which is the Swara, Para Varna which is the Swara, and you can classify this Ach Varna plus Ach Varna in 3 major buckets. The first is, look at this Ach Varna which is the Purva Varna, and if it is the Ik letter, so what is Acha? It is A. So that's A Varna. When you say A Varna, it is A and A. So you have A Varna, then you have I, U, Ru, Lu. So we can club them together to by representing it is Ik Pratyahara. And finally A, O, I, O. So we can club them by representing as H Pratyahara. So Ach is essentially A plus Ik plus H. Out of that, if the Purva Varna is the Ikka Varna, what happens is the Purvadesha called Yanadesha by the sutra Iko Yanachi. We have studied that in yesterday's class. Similarly, if the Purva Varna is the H Varna, A, O, I, O, then what happens is the Purvadesha, which is called Yantavantadesha, given by the sutram Echo Yavayavaha. We have also seen this in the yesterday's class. So essentially, the Ekadesha part of this Samhita has completely taken care of the Ik portion and has completely taken care of the H portion, and we have only Akara remaining. So that's the third category, Akara or Akara. So A Varna plus Ach Varna. And what happens is, this is what is described in Ekadesha. So there are 4 different types of Ekadeshas which require Purva Varna as A Varna and then Ach Varna as the Paravarna. So 4 different types of Ekadeshas require this configuration. And as I mentioned, the total number of Ekadeshas is 5. So there is yet another 5th Ekadesha which I vaguely mentioned or briefly mentioned in the previous class, where there is the Padanta Eng Varna, like 1A plus Asmin, 1A Smin. That is also Ekadesha. It is called a Purva Rupa Ekadesha. That comes as an Apavada of Yantavantadesha. So in general, when you have Eka plus Eka, H Varna plus Ach Varna, you will get a, sorry, when you have 1A plus Iti, H Varna plus Ach Varna, you will get Yantavantadesha like Vanayiti. But when you have Padanta Eng Varna and a Rasva Akara, 1A plus Asmin, by blocking the Yantavantadesha, you get this particular Purva Rupa Ekadesha. So this Purva Rupa Ekadesha comes as an Apavada of Yantavantadesha, whereas the remaining 4 Ekadeshas, they also some of them come as an Apavada of others, but we'll keep that aside for now. But these 4 Ekadeshas mainly follow the configuration of Akara or Akara plus Ach letter. So with this background, now let us start with the Adhikara Sutram Ekaha Purva Parayoho. So that ekaha purvaparayoho adhikara, it encompasses these all 5 ekadeshas. So that's the ekaha purvaparayoho. It is the adhikara sutram. Ita uttaram khyatyaat parasya ityetasmad prag yadvakshamaha tatra पूर्वस्य परस्य द्वयोः अपि स्थाने संहितायाम् एकादेशः भवति इत्येतत् वेदितव्यम्. Very simple and straightforward. एकः पूर्वपरयोः संहितायाम् इति अधिकारः. संहितायाम् एकः पूर्वपरयोः. पूर्वपरयोः is the स्थान षष्ठी. पूर्वः च परः च इति पूर्वपरौ तयोः स्थाने. So पूर्ववर्णस्य स्थाने तथा च परवर्णस्य स्थाने एकत्र रूपेण एकः भवति. एकः वर्णः आदेशरूपेण विधीयते. इदमपि अधिकारसूत्रम् अस्ति. अस्मिन् अधिकारे पाठितैः सूत्रैः संहितायाः विषये पूर्वपरयोः एकादेशः विधीयते. अयम् एकादेशः पञ्चविधः. गुण एकादेशः, वृद्धि एकादेशः, सवर्णदीर्घ एकादेशः, पूर्वरूप एकादेशः एंड पररूप एकादेशः. Example, Ad Gunaha Deva plus Indra Devendra. This is an Ekadesha. The point to understand is that no sutras in this Adhikara will have a Shashthyanta Pada, because Shashthyanta is used to indicate a Sthani, and there is no single Sthani over there. We are talking about Ekadesha. So there are two entities, X and Y, and both are being combined together. So which will you call Sthani? So अस्मिन् अधिकारे विद्यमानेषु सूत्रेषु प्रायेण, there may be one or two exceptions here and there, but प्रायेण षष्ठ्यन्तं पदं न विद्यते. There is a purva nimitta, so X will be represented with Panchami, Y will be represented with Saptami, but you are not supposed to use Ubhaya Nirdeshe, Panchami Nirdesho, Balyana and so on Paribhasha. This is given as Ekadesha. It is Ekaha Purva Parayoho. So Atra Purva Nimittam Paranimittam cha Dattam Asti. Dvayoho Sthane Ekatra Rupena Ekadesha Vidhiyate. So this is basically the Adhikara Sutra. There is nothing great over here. And now let's go to the first Sutram, Eng of Padantati. Looking at that diagram that I was referring to earlier, Eng of Padantati is the first Sutram that we are going to talk. And this Eng of Padantati is this Sutram which is on the lower part of the screen, which comes as an Apavada of Yantavantadesha. So I purposely want to pick up this first because it is a special category, and then we will go to the remaining 4 ones, which is Avarna plus Achvarna. So let's talk about this Purva Rupa Ekadesha given by the Sutram Eng of Padantadati. In yesterday's class, I have briefly mentioned this, but now let's look at the Sutram officially. So Ashtadhyayi Prathama Padasya 109th Sutram Eng of Padantadati. Padantat engaha atipare. So now while the sutrartha is being read, you should be able to understand. Padantat engaha. So that's Panchami. Atipare. Hasva akare pare. Taparakaranam asti. Padantat engaha atipare. Purva parayoho. Purva rupam ekadeshaha syat samhitayam. So simple. Padachhedaha engaha padantat ati. Purvaha comes as an anuvritti. Samhitayam ekaha purva parayoho is an adhikara. So purva comes from abhipurvaha. Samhitayam and ekah purva parayoho is the adhikara. The complete sutra is padantad engaha ati samhitayam purva parayoho ekaha purvaha. Very simple to understand. Padantat engaha is the purva nimittam. Tasmat parasya ityukte padante yaha ekarah okarah va vidyate tasmat parasya. Eng pratyahar is eong, ekara and okara. Ati is the saptami. Hrasva akare pare. अत्र तपरकरणं कृतमस्ति, अतः आकारस्य विषये इदं सूत्रं न प्रवर्तते, केवलं ह्रस्व अकारे परे. सो पदान्तात् एङ्गः अति पूर्वः इत्युक्ते पूर्ववर्णः एकादेशरूपेण विधीयते. So padanta ekarat, if there is a normal ekara which is not padanta, then you are going to get ayadesha by echo yavayavaha. Similarly, if there is a normal non-padanta okara, you are still going to get avadesha by blocking that. So padanta ekarat, padanta okarat, rasva akare pare, पूर्वपरयोः स्थाने एकः पूर्ववर्णः एव आदेशरूपेण विधीयते एचो यवा यावः इत्यस्य अयम् अपवादः। एग्जाम्पल्स, वने सप्तमी एकवचनमस्ति, वने प्लस अस्मिन् a and a, so it is padanta ekara and hrasva akara, both of them combined together to form the purva varna, which is ekara. Vana plus a plus smin, vanesmin. The reason I have specifically written saptami ekvachanam is because vane is also prathama dvivachanam and dvitiya dvivachanam, vanem vane vanani. But if it is prathama dvivachanam or if it is dvitiya dvivachanam, the sandhi does not happen because it is blocked by prakruti bhava, which we are going to study in the next class. If vane is saptami ekvachanam, then there is no problem and the sandhi will happen. So vane, which is saptami ekvachanam, plus asmin vanesmin iti rupam siddhyati. Similarly, pachate prathama purusha ekvachanasya rupam idamapi padam asti. So tingantam asti atah padam asti. So pachate plus asau, a plus a again become a pachate sau. I specifically took one example of subanta, one example of tinganta because it is the padanta ekara or okara that we are looking for. Similarly, sadho plus atra sadhotra. भवद्भिः बहूनि अन्यानि उदाहरणानि पूर्वमेव ज्ञातानि अवश्यं स्युः. Now one small writing nuance, लेखन विशेषः, पूर्व एकादेशे कृते पूर्वरूप एकादेशे कृते बहुत्र अवग्रह चिह्नस्य साहाय्येन तस्य निर्देशः क्रियते. Almost everywhere vane plus asmin, you write it as vane and smin. See how I have written it earlier. I just wrote vane smin without any avagraha chinna. That is also acceptable. And you can write vane smin with an avagraha chinna. That is also acceptable. But what you have to understand is that whatever is written in this avagraha chinna format, it is not to be pronounced as vanesmin. There is no difference in the pronunciation. It is not an elongated swara. So atra avagraha chinnam sandhehe jnapanartham asti. Avagraha chinnena उच्चारणे कोऽपि भेदः न जायते. वनेस्मिन् इत्यत्र त्रिमात्रिकः एकारः वनेस्मिन्, चतुर्मात्रिकः एकारः वनेस्मिन् इति किमपि नास्ति. उच्चारण समये whether you write it as vanesmin without avagraha or vanesmin with avagraha, the ucharana does not differ at all. So ucharana samaye ekarasya samanyam ityukte dvimatrikam ucharanam eva karaniyam. Ati dirgham, it is already a dirgha, parantu ati dirgham ucharanam na karaniyam. And this avagraha chinna is not a proprietary property of this purva savarna purva rupa sandhi. You can also see this in some other sandhis. So kutrachit savarna dirgha sandhehi nirdeshartham api avagraha chinnam, kutrachit double avagraha chinnam prayuktam drishyate. So bala plus agachati, many times you see it written as bala agachati with double avagraha chinna. This is also not to be extended double times. It is simply bala gachati. The double avagraha is again an indicator of savarna dirgha. So atrapi uchcharane visheshaha bhedaha na jayate. Visheshan, no bheda. Kopi bhedaha na jayate. Vishesha, there is no concern. Any questions so far? I think most of these sandhis you have already studied. It's just the matter of understanding the sutras. So class is going to be pretty light. But let's go a little bit ahead. Now, what I'm going to do, we have not done this earlier, but we are going to do this going ahead in this course for multiple places. We are going to look at the sutram and we are going to dissect the sutram. We are going to say why is a certain word present in the sutram? What would happen if that word is removed from the sutram? What would happen if that word is altered from the sutram, and so on. So we are now going to put the hat of a critic and we are going to inspect the necessity and completeness of the sutram. This process is very interesting. It can be done for almost every sutram. Obviously, we are not going to do it for every sutram. We'll do it for some handful of important sutras, and this process is called dalakrutyam. Dala is something like petals. So you take a flower and you dissect it by removing petals one after the other, and you try to find role of each component in the final structure of the flower. It is exactly like this. Dalakrutyam. We are going to look at each word, we are going to take it apart, and we are going to say, we are going to argue why that word has been put in the sutra by Panini Maharshi. So, engaha iti kimartham. Why the specific enga word is put? The answer is obvious. Eng only represents the two letters A and O. Outside that, so remember, Echo yava yavaha, there is already an H pratyahar over there. H pratyahar consists of I and Au as well, in addition to A and O. Now, as an apavada to Echoyavayavaha, Eng Pratyahara is added, which means Panini Maharshi wants to block the application of this sutram for Padanta Aikara and Padanta Aukara. So, Engaha iti kimartham Padanta Aikara Padanta Aukaryoho Vishaye Anena Sutrena Purva Rupam na bhavati. So, whether, even though there is a Padanta property, even though there is a Raswa Akara in front, if the Enga condition is not satisfied, then you cannot apply the Sutram. So, Vandai, Lot Lakarasya Rupamasti, Vandai plus Atra, Ityatra, Vandayatra. You do not get the Purva Rupa Sandhi, you get Ayadesha by Echoyavayavaha. Similarly, Subanta Rupamasti, this is Vandai is Tingantam, Balo is Subantam. Balau plus Atra, Atrapi Purva Rupam na bhavati. Next word, Padantaditi kimartham. So you have Eng, fair enough. You have Ati, fair enough. One particle has to be inspected at a time. Padantaditi kimartham. So if there is a Padanta Ekara or a Padanta Okara, then you do not get application of this sutram. So G plus Aniyar, this is what we have seen in yesterday's class. G dhatoho Aniyar pratyay krute. G dhatoho J iti parivartanam bhavati. That's a separate sutram. But when you have J plus Aniya, there is Ekara, there is Akara in front, but J is just a dhatu, or right now it is Anga, it is not a pada at all, because it is neither Subanta nor Tinganta. Therefore, J plus Aniyar ityatra padantatva abhavat idam sutram na pravartate. So you default back to Echo Yavayavaha, giving Jayaniya. And similarly, for Bhu, it will be Bhavaniya. So that's what Engaha iti kimartham, Padantad iti kimartham, and finally Ati iti kimartham. So Ati, Taparakaranam the Krutam asti. So why is the Taparakaranam done? Because Akaraha asti che Purva Rupam na bhavati. So if you have a Padanta Eng, but if there is Akara in front, so Vane Asit इत्यत्र पदांत एकारः अस्ति, परन्तु तस्मादनन्तरम् आकारः विद्यते, अत्रापि पूर्वरूपं न भवति. सेम साधो प्लस आकृतिः, अत्रापि पूर्वरूपं न भवति. Anena prakarena. So I spent a little bit more time on this slide because I think Dalakrutyam is what we are doing for the first time, but we are going to do Dalakrutyam again and again. I think in some of the sutras in today's class we are going to do it, and going ahead in other classes also we are going to do it. So Dalakrutyam is a process of literally breaking down the sutram and understanding the purpose, the requirement of each word in that sutram. Agre gacchamaha. So let's go to that particular diagram once again. So we are done with the ekadesha, which is the purva rupa ekadesha, which is the padanta eng varna plus raswa akara. And now we are going to focus on 4 important ekadeshas, which are all share the common structure akara or akara. A varna is on the left because ik varna is already taken care of and h varna is already taken care of. So only the akara or akara, we'll call it avarna. So only the avarna is on the left and then ach is on the right. So there are 4 different ekadeshas and they have a complex interaction of utsarga apavada, complex relationship. Let's take a look at it on the top level for now, and then we will go to each individual sutram. So to start with, the way Panini Maharshi defines the whole thing, and you can always object, you can say this might not be the right way, as somebody was saying yesterday that instead of a Purva Rupa, what would happen if a Lopa is being told? Something like that. But let me first explain how the whole system has been constructed by Maharshi. So Maharshi says that the default ekadesha is always guna ekadesha. So unless there is any particular apavada being told, you resort to guna ekadesha. So let's go back to that original slide. Now it's very simple. If it is ikkavarna plus achvarna, it is purvadesha, which is yanadesha. If it is H Varna plus Ach Varna, it is also Purvadesha, but Yantavantadesha. And if it is A Varna plus Ach Varna, by default, it is Guna Ekadesha. Maha plus Isha, Mahesha. That's the Guna Ekadesha. So, unless an Apavada is being told, it is a Guna Ekadesha. So, he simply gives it as a default. Now, what are the apavadas? The first apavada is obviously Savarna Dirgha Ekadesha, because now you are going to dissect it down this Paravarna, Ach letter. The Purvavarna has already been dissected. We are only left with the Avarna for the Purva entity. The Para entity is now being dissected. So dissect Ach letter. If it is Avarna, which is Rasva or Dirgha Akara, then you have Avarna plus Avarna. In that configuration, the Savarna Dirgha Ekadesha will block Guna Ekadesha. So the very first apavada of Guna Ekadesha for Avarna plus Avarna is Savarna Dirgha. Then if it is H Varna as the Paravarna, so we are going to break the Paravarna again in the same categories, A or Ik or H. For A, it is the Savarna Dirgha Ekadesha. If the Paravarna is H Varna, which is basically A Varna plus H Varna, A, I, O, then you are going to have Vriddhi Ekadesha. So Paravarna is H Varna and Purva Varna is A Varna. This is Vriddhi Ekadesha, which comes as an apavada of Guna Ekadesha. So Eka plus Eka is Ekaika. The Para letter is H letter. It is giving a Vriddhi Ekadesha, which is an apavada of Guna Ekadesha. Now starts the little more complication. So there is another Vriddhi Ekadesha which comes as an apavada of Guna Ekadesha. The Purva Varna is always going to be a Varna. There is no change in that. But if the Paravarna is a very special type of Dirgha Ukara, not any Dirgha Ukara, but very special type of Dirgha Ukara, which is the Dirgha Ukara of Adesha called Utha. So there is an Adesha in one of the sutras called Utha Adesha. I can show you. The sutra is called Vah Utha. So if you see the sutram 64132, Vah Utha. Now forget about what is written over here, Vaha iti bhasamnyakasa and so on. All that you have to understand is Vaha iti shabdasya vishaye. Vaha, Vishwavaha, Varivaha, एतेषु शब्देषु यः वाह शब्दः अस्ति तस्य ऊठ इति आदेशः भवति. The first vakara of that vah becomes ऊठ. Th is the it samyaka, only u remains. So if you look at the prakriya, most of the prakriya you will not understand, but that is okay. If you look at the prakriya, you can see that there is a word called vah, and we are doing a tritiya ekvachanam of this vah by adding the ta pratyaya, the tritiya ekvachanam, and then this va is becoming utha. So this particular utha is what being discussed in this sutram. So if there is an a varna, you can actually go to that page on the website, and the immediate next example shows it. So Vishwavaha is the word. Vishwavaha is the word. The Vishwavaha word has Vishwa and Vaha. The Vaha, because of some process, gets converted to Utha. You don't need to worry about how it is converted. Just understand that there is an Utha Adesha over here. So Vishwavaha has Vishwa plus Utha. And now you have a configuration where there is akara at the end of Vishwa and there is ukara at the beginning of Utha. So this is the configuration that we are saying a plus u. Technically, a plus u should be guna. Surya plus udaya is suryodaya, or Surya plus uti is suryoti, and so on. But specifically, if that ukara is of utha adesha, then you get a vriddhi by blocking the guna. So Vishwa plus uha, going back to that particular page, Vishwa plus uha ityatra, Vishwa plus u, a plus u gives a vriddhi called au. So Vishwau ha, Vishwau ha, Vishwau he, and so on. So a plus u gives au. So Vishwa plus uha. Uha is coming from the vah word getting converted to ut. So Vishwa plus uha, Vishwauha. That's the vriddhi that is happening specifically for only one adesha called utha. So that's the second apavada where guna is being blocked by vriddhi. So first is simple one, a varna plus any h letter. The second is very specific, a varna plus utha. This is where the guna is being blocked by vriddhi. And finally, the third one, yet another very specific case, if there is a dhatu and upasarga combination, reverse actually, upasarga and dhatu, upasarga will come first. So if there is upasarga and dhatu combination, the upasarga has the a varna. So the purva varna is the upasarga, it is akaranta upasarga, and the dhatu is the rukaradi dhatu. Dhatu in the sense dhatu rupam. The dhatu rupam, it can be tigantam, it can be krudantam. But dhatu rupam is rukaradi dhatu rupam. So again, focus on this. Rasva akaranta or dirgha akaranta upasarga, like pra or para or upa or ava. So akaranta or akaranta upasarga and rukaradi, rasva rukaradi dhatu rupam, you have pra plus ruchhati. Again, technically it would be guna prarchati. Brahma plus Rishi becomes or Brahma plus Rishi becomes Brahmarshi. Sapta plus Rishi becomes Saptarshi. So Ar comes in the Guna Ekadesha. But here Pla plus Ruchati, Prarchati, not Prarchati. So that's again Vriddhi Ekadesha. So third important apavad, if there is an Upasarganta Avarna and if there is a Dhatva Dirkara, then the Guna is blocked by Vriddhi. So that's the reason I took three important Vriddhi Ekadeshas. All of these come as apavada of Guna Ekadesha. One of them is the straightforward Avarna plus H Varna. The second one, Avarna plus very specific entity called Utha. And third is Upasarganta Avarna plus Dhatvadi Rikara. I think it should have been bold, a little bit formatting issues, but Upasarganta Avarna plus Dhatvadi Rukara. These are the three Vriddhi Ekadesha Sutras. So that takes care of three important Adeshas. I mentioned there are four Ekadeshas. So we are done with Guna Ekadesha, we are done with Savarna Dirgha Ekadesha, we are done with Vriddhi Ekadesha, and the fourth is Pararupa Ekadesha. Ironically or interestingly, this Pararupa Ekadesha comes as a further apavada of Vriddhi Ekadesha. So in this Vriddhi Ekadesha, you have A Varna plus H Varna. So any a letter, so eka for example, plus H Varna, say another eka. So eka there is akara and eka there is ekara. Ekaika iti vriddhi bhavati. But in some specific configurations, this particular Vriddhi Ekadesha is blocked by Pararupa Ekadesha. So x plus y becomes y. How is this happening? If the A Varna is Upasarganta A Varna, just like this Prarchati example, the A Varna is the Upasarganta A Varna, but and the next one, which will obviously be a dhatu now because there is an upasarga to the left. So the dhatu that is coming after it is enga varnadi dhatu. So out of that h, only if the dhatu rupa starts with ekara or okara, eng varnadi dhatu rupam, then you get Pararupa ekadesha. So here is an example. Pra plus ejate. Technically it should be praijate by vriddhi ekadesha. But what is happening? There is an upasarganta avarna to the left and there is dhatvadi eng varna to the right. Ekaradi dhatu rupam asti. Atha pra plus a ityatra pararupa means the second one comes as the final answer. Like 5 multiplied by 0 is 0. So pararupa ekadesha bhavati. You get the final form as prejate. So that is the pararupa ekadesha, which is the fourth of the ekadeshas. So you have guna ekadesha, you have savarna dirgha ekadesha, you have vriddhi ekadesha, three categories in the vriddhi ekadesha, and the apavada of the first category is the pararupa ekadesha. This particular diagram will help you to visualize all of this in a crystal clear manner. And as an icing on the cake, or a little bit more complicated addition, there is a further apavada of pararupa ekadesha. उपसर्गान्त अवर्णः अस्ति तदनन्तरं धात्वादि एङ् वर्णः अस्ति इत्युक्ते अ धातुरूप धात्वादि means what? There will be a dhatu rupa. So dhatu rupa krudanta or tinganta, if it is starting with ekara or okara, you are getting pararupa ekadesha. But for certain specific two dhatus, ina dhatu, ina means to go, ina dhatu, and edha to rise, vriddhau. So edha dhatu to increase, to prosper. So for a specific dhatu called ina dhatu and for a specific dhatu called edha dhatu, if that dhatvadi eng varna is there, eng varna, please understand, ina is ikaradi, but dhatu forms of ina will be ekaradi, like eti. The lat lakara prathama purusha ekvachana form of ina dhatu is eti. So that is ekaradi. So we are concerned with dhatu rupa. We are not concerned with individual dhatus. So if that dhatvadi eng varna is from the ina dhatu, or if it is from the edha dhatu, like edhate, edha is atmanepadi, we are saying, so we are saying edhate. Ina is parasmaipadi, so we are saying eti. So if that ekara or okara examples are not there, but if that ekara is from specifically from ina dhatu or edha dhatu, and obviously there is an upasarganta avarna in the left, then vriddhi ekadesha comes back by blocking pararupa ekadesha. So pararupa ekadeshasya apavadattvena vriddhi ekadesha vidhiyate. So you have, first of all, if you just look at upa plus eti, people who don't know more, who know only basic vriddhi will anyway do vriddhi. They will say upa plus eti, it is a plus a means I, by normal a varna plus h varna vriddhi is happening. But how is the logistics going on internally? Upa plus eti इत्यत्र वृद्धि एकादेशः अवर्ण प्लस एच वर्ण इति नियमेन यः प्राप्तः आसीत् तस्य अपवादत्वेन पररूप एकादेशस्य तत्र प्राप्तिः आसीत्, because this is उपसर्गान्त अकार and there is a dhatvadi eng varna. So technically pararupa ekadesha should have happened like pla plus ejate, but because this is ina dhatu or because this is edha dhatu, that pararupa ekadesha is also being blocked and vriddhi ekadesha is brought back. So the killer of the killer is killed, something like that. So vriddhi ekadesha was originally killing guna ekadesha, pararupa ekadesha was killing vriddhi ekadesha, and that pararupa ekadesha is being killed, you are getting back the vriddhi ekadesha. So negation of negation. So specifically for only two dhatus, not dhatu rupas. There may be many dhatu rupas. Edhate, edhete, edhante, edhase. Many dhatu rupas are there. But it should belong to edha dhatu or it should belong to ina dhatu. Specifically for these two dhatus, vriddhi ekadesha is brought back. This is how the four ekadeshas, one of them, total ekadeshas are 5, one of them was clean, we already did it, Purva Rupa Ekadesha. The remaining 4 are intermingled like this. And how are they represented in sutra format by Panini Maharshi? He creates one sutram called Adgunaha for Guna Ekadesha. So see the numbering on the slide. He creates one sutram for the Utsarga Guna Ekadesha. Then he creates a second sutram for Apavada Savarna Dirgha Ekadesha. Then he creates a third sutram for only this first Vriddhi Ekadesha. There are 3 Vriddhi Ekadeshas stacked over there. Out of that, only for the first Vriddhi Ekadesha, a sutra is made. Then, as an apavada to that, another sutra is made for the Pararupa Ekadesha. So basically, one sutra per block. It's easy. So Guna Ekadesha, one sutra, Savarna Dirgha Ekadesha, second sutra, the middle block, the first block, Avarna plus H Varna, third sutra, Upasarganta Avarna plus Dhatwadi Eng Varna, that's the Pararupa Ekadesha, fourth sutram. The next one is interesting. As an apavada of this Pararupa Ekadesha, Vriddhi is coming. So Vriddhi Ekadesha, Ekara is missing over here. Yakara is missing. Vriddhi Ekadesha, Panini Maharshi creates a sutram to capture this Vriddhi Ekadesha and this middle Vriddhi Ekadesha in a single sutram. So you have number 5 over here and number 5 over here. So that's the only complication. Ete dhati utsu. So eti edhati utsu. Sutra is very simple. He says Vriddhi happens in 3 cases. Eti edhati utsu. For the eti, for the edha dhatu, and for the utha particle. So eti edhati utsu. Iti sutrena. Two conditions or two boxes are captured together. One box which is the apavada of Pararupa Ekadesha and one box which is the apavada of Guna Ekadesha. So these two boxes are captured by a single sutram. So repeat, one sutram ad gunaha for Guna Ekadesha, Savarna Dirgha Ekadesha, Akas Savarne Dirghaha, Vriddhi Ekadesha first box, Vriddhirechi, Pararupa Ekadesha, Eng of Padant no, Engi Pararupam. Pararupa Ekadesha is Engi Pararupam. As an apavada to that, Vriddhi Ekadesha, which captures this Vriddhi Ekadesha along with the Ut case of the middle section, that's Etye Dhatyutsu. And finally, the last box is a separate sutra, Upasarga Dhritidhatau. So that's basically these 6 different sutras that we are going to study in today's class in exactly the same order. So you have this is our sutra list. So if you can see, we completed Ekaf Purva Parayoho, we completed Engaf Padantati, we completed and then now we are going to start with Ad Gunaha, which was number 1, Akassavarane Dirgha, which was number 2, Vriddhirechi, that was number 3, Engi Pararupam, that was number 4, Etye Dhatyutsu, that is 2 boxes together, number 5, and Upasarga Dhritidhatu, that's number 6. So these are the 6 sutras we are going to study in today's class. I'll take a minor pause over here. Any questions? Please feel free to ask. Purnima ji.
नमस्कारः महोदय। तत्र वृद्धैकादेशः इत्यत्र यणादेशः भवति वा इति ऐ मे बि राङ्ग् बट् ऐक् वृद्धि एकादेशः ऐकारः कथम्?
No, this is typing mistake. I mentioned it while teaching. Here you are saying, right? On the right side. And this is a typing mistake. See, it's written correctly over here. In the middle of the screen is written correctly. It is a typing mistake. If you are so much concerned, let me fix it right
न महोदय, वृद्धि इक् वर्णः एकारः ए वर्णः तत्र ऐ इति कथं भवति?
Vriddhi Ekadesha. You are correct. So it should be Vriddhi Ekadesha. Was I saying Vriddhi Ekadesha? No, my mistake. Sorry. Let me fix it. Give me a minute. So Vriddhi Ekadesha. Vriddhi Ekadesha. Correct. Because of I must have copy pasted Guna Ekadesha, Vriddhi Ekadesha. Sorry. So Vriddhi Ekadesha and Guna Ekadesha, Vriddhi Ekadesha, Pararupa Ekadesha, Savarna Dirgha Ekadesha. Thank you very much. Yeah. If that's okay, right? If that's what you wanted to say. Reshma ji.
Namaste, Mohoday. My question is about this Vriddhi Ekadesha. This Upasarganta avarga plus ina edha dhatu. Tari ina dhatoh kevalam eti va ekarena यस्य प्रारंभः भवति तस्य कृते एव अस्ति वा इकारेण अपि इयाय इति रूपाणि भवन्ति तेषां कृते अपि अस्ति?
तेषां कृते नास्ति। किमर्थमित्युक्ते धात्वादि एङ् वर्णः इति उक्तमस्ति. So this is specifically for एङ् letter which is A and O. and it is coming as an apavada to Pararupa ekadesha, which has dhatwadi eng varna. So eng ityasya apavadrupena eng ityeva pravarteta. अथा इयाय इत्येतेषां विषये अस्य सूत्रस्य प्रसक्तिर्नास्ति. Clear? We are going to talk about the sutras. I'll give all the examples. This was just an overview so that now you know what is coming up in the next 30 minutes or so. Vidyaji.
Namaskar, Mahodaya. Just curiosity in your Dalakrityam slide. Is Dalakrityam for every pada?
Technically, it should be
parts
for
of
every
the pada also.
Technically, it should be for every pada. Technically, it can be for parts of the pada. For example, eti edhati utsu. You can question about eti separately, edhati separately, utsu separately. So you can do dalakrutyam in as details as you want. There are dalakrutyas for adhikaras also. Why is this in the ekapurva parayo adhikara? Why this is in the samhitayam adhikara? That kind of dalakruty is also there. Basically, dalakrutyam is dissection of a sutra.
अस्तु महोदय, तत्र अति इत्यत्र अपि वक्तुं शक्नुमः किल? तत्र अकारस्य एकवारं तदनन्तरं अत् इति तादृति इति भवति किल?
करेक्ट. सो बाय बोथ वेज यू कैन से. सो अति इत्युक्ते इकारः नास्ति इति अपि वक्तुं शक्यते. अति इत्युक्ते तपरकरणं किमर्थम् इति अपि वक्तुं शक्यते. सो बोथ थिंग्स यू कैन राइट. करेक्ट. रत्नाकरजी.
Acharya, namaste. Just will you go back to the previous slide where you have shown the diagram like what exactly the Pararupa ekadesha here, that is upasarganta varna dhatwadikari eng varna. There is pra plus ejate, prejate. Here and the next below that, upa plus eti. Both are a plus a only. But what exactly is the difference between these two?
The difference in the lowermost box is that it is a specifically ina dhatu or edha dhatu. Specific to dhatus. So eti is the form of the ina dhatu, edhate is the form of the edha dhatu. So general upasarganta avarna plus any dhatu, the top box. But only specific ina dhatu and edha dhatu is the bottom box. Clear?
Oh, okay.
Any further questions? Okay, agre gacchamaha. So, Vidyaji.
One more question, that vane asmin tatra vane plus asmin tatra vanesmin ityatra vane iti padam bhavitavyam iti uktavan asti. Tatra vane iti prathama dvivachane api tatra padam eva kila.
Correct.
Vanetra iti kimapi vaktum shaknuमः.
So that's what I said, na, ki vane iti prathmadvivachanasya asti chet padam api asti, sandhehe niyamah api asti, parantu tatra prakriti bhavena nishedha pravartate. So in the next class we are going to learn why vane in the prathmadvivachanam cannot be an example over here. That's what we are going to learn in the next class. For now you can say vane, any vane is okay, but technically it has to be saptami ekvachanam. I mean, there are only three choices. You have prathama dvivachanam, dvitiya dvivachanam, sambodhan is included in prathama, or you have saptami ekvachanam. Out of that, for prathama and dvitiya, such an example might exist, but it is blocked by prakriti bhava, which we will learn in the next class. Therefore, it is only saptami. Any further questions? Okay. Agree. Gachama. So we have this. I have this slide open separately over here because we will continue to refer to that slide. So the first thing that we are going to now talk about is the Guna Ekadesha, which is the Utsarga of all of them. Sutras are very simple. I'll run through them. All of you are already familiar with examples. So the only point to understand clearly is this Badhya Badaka Bhava. That's why I spent so much time on it. So Ad Gunaha. Ashtadhyayi se prathama padasya 87th. I don't know how to speak this in Sanskrit. 87th sutram ad guna avarnad achipare purva parayoho guna ekadeshah syat samhitayam. So ad gunaha, achi is the anuvrutti coming all the way from iko yanachi. So 10 sutras coming down, 6177 to 6187. So achi is the anuvrutti from iko yanachi. Samhitayam purva parayoho iti adhikara dvayam at अच्छी samhitayam purvaparayoho ekaha gunaha. If the purva varna is akara, rasva akara or dirgha akara, so that at is explained over here. At is a ityasya panchami ekvachanam. So like Rama becomes Ramat, A becomes At, Avarnat, Akarat nochet Akarat. This is not a taparakaranam. At iti taparakaranam nasti. Akarasya taparakaranam kartumeva न शक्यते. तेन न कोऽपि लाभः. अतः यतो हि आकारेण सवर्णग्रहणमपि न क्रियते. So at is not taparakaranam. It is also not uchcharanartha. You learn it from the commentaries. So it is basically akarasya panchami ekvachanam. So rasva nochet dirgha. Whenever you just say just a, it is rasva or dirgha. So rasva or dirgha akarat anantaram achi. So that's the paranimittam. अच्वर्णे परे पूर्वपरयोः एकः गुणसम्यकः वर्णः आदेशरूपेण विधीयते. Who is a guna? It is akara, ekara or okara by adeng gunaha. So adeng gunaha ityanena akara, ekara, okaranam gunasamnya asti. So akarat va anantaram samhitayam achvarnaha vidyate. The sutra says ach, but remember we have seen the h is gone, ut is gone, dhatvadi rukara is gone. So many sub cases are gone. Only the remaining cases are the correct examples over here. So akarat, but while writing the sutra, it is achi. So akarat va anantaram samhitayam achvarnaha vidyate chet purvaparayoho sthane gunasamnyakaha varnaha adesha rupena vidhiyate. And which of the three entities a or o is to be chosen? That's done by the sthana sadharanya, sthanentartamaha. So udharanas, avarna plus avarna. Now because we are saying achi, I am going to talk about all possible sub cases. So avarna plus avarna ityatra ad gunaha ityenena praptam guna ekadesham badhitva akassavarne dirgha ityenena savarna dirgha ekadesha vidhiyate. Avarna plus e varna, you get the guna samnyaka ekara because of the talu uchcharana sthana. So avarna is kantha, e varna is talu, kantha talu is that ekara. So kantha talu taha upalabhyamana ekara ekadesha rupena vidhiyate. All examples you already know. Avarna plus uvarna okara because of the kantha uchcharana sthana. Sorry, because of the oshtha uchcharana sthana. Kantha is common everywhere. So the difference is made by talu versus oshtau. So avarnasya uchcharana sthanam kantha, uvarnasya uchcharana sthanam oshtau. The combined uchcharana sthanam kanthostham is for the okara. So that comes as an ekadesha. You already know the examples like suryodaya and so on. The interesting part is avarna plus ru varna. The choices that you have are only a and o. So avarna plus ru varna, ityatla ru is murdha, a is kantha, and the choices that you have are a and o. A is outrightly rejected because there is no murdha. O is outrightly rejected because there is no murdha, and a is suspicious because there is only kantha, there is no murdha. But then Urandraparaha comes to our help. Urandraparaha says that rukarasya sthane vidhiyamanaha akaraha raparaha san eva pravartate. So it can never be it can never be simply akara. It has to be a ra. So avarna plus ruvarna atra purvaparayoho sthane gunasamnyakaha akaraha urandraparaha ityanena raparaha san adesha rupena pravartate. And now once you have ara, the sthanas exactly match. The avarna is kantha, ruvarna is murdha, ar also avarna is kantha, repha is murdha. So ar iti adesha rupena vidhiyate iti atra ashayah. अवर्णस्य उच्चारणस्थानं कण्ठः रुवर्णस्य मूर्धा द्वयोरपि स्थाने उच्चारणस्थानेन अन्तरतम्यात् अर् इति एकादेशरूपेण विधीयते. देवर्षि, महर्षि and so on are the well-known examples. The point to understand over here is that many students get confused over here. A plus ru is also a r. A plus ru is not r. A plus ru is also a r. Maha plus Rushi is not Maharshi. You might think what the basic things I'm telling, but this is the place where many students fall prey. They make a mistake over here. So A plus Ru is not R, it is Ar. Akara is not a Guna Samnyak Varna. Akara is Guna Samnyak Varna, and that comes along with R. So Ar iti eva atra Gunadesha Rupena vidhiyate. R iti na vidhiyate. That was for a plus ru. You also have similar examples for a plus lu, because I mean lu examples will be hypothetical or very limited, but you still have them. So a plus lu, the a varna plus lu varna, purva pareho sthane गुणसम्यकः अकारः लपरः सन् सो उरण्ड्रपरः इत्यत्र र इति प्रत्याहारः र ल उभयोः ग्रहणं भवति सो रेफः तथा लकारः तत्र विद्यमानः लकारः इदं लकारः अत्र आदेशरूपेण विधीयते सो अ comes along with that ल so al iti adesharupena vidhiyate tavalkara and so on, and again the a plus lu ityatra al iti bhavati al iti na bhavati. Finally, the remaining letters a o I o, the default is vriddhideshi, that will block the guna ekadesha. So you have h varna a I o au, vriddhi ekadesha is going to block the guna ekadesha. रत्नाकर महोदय.
हाँ, नमस्ते. So, Purandraparaha is more or less an ancillary sutra for Adgunaha. Is that so?
No, Urandraparaha can be used in many other cases. Anytime Rukarasya sthane Akaradeshaha, Ikaradesha, Ukaradesha, even Akaradesha yada bhavati, tada Urandrapara ityanena Sarraparaha vidhiyate. So, Guna Ekadesha, that is Ad Guna, is only one instance where Urandraparaha comes, but there are many other cases, and Guna Ekadesha is a minority where the Urandraparaha comes. Many cases are there where Urandrapara is used.
So basically, we cannot consider that it is a subsutra of Adgunaha
No.
or ancillary sutra.
It has its own application in many different places.
Oh,
Okay.
fine. I thought wherever Adgunaha, both go more or less,
No.
particularly with the Rukara.
No, even in Dhatu Prakriyas, Subanta Prakriyas, you will see many. We are going to see Urandrapara many places in the course.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Okay, Agre Gachama. So that was about Akassavarani Dirgha. Now the first apavada of the Akassavarani Dirgha, sorry, that was about the Ad Gunaha, Guna Ekadesha. Now the first apavada of Guna Ekadesha is Akassavarani Dirgha, the Savarana Dirgha. So 61101, Akassavarani Dirgha, Akaha Savarane Achipare, Samhitayam Purvaparayoho Ekaha Dirgha Ekad. Let's read it again exactly how it is written. Akassavarane Achipare पूर्वपरयोः दीर्घः एकादेशः स्यात् संहितायाम्. Straightforward. अकः सवर्णे दीर्घः. अचि is the anuvritti. संहितायाम् एकः पूर्वपरयोः is the अधिकारः. अकः सवर्णे अचि पूर्वपरयोः एकः दीर्घः. पूर्वनिमित्तम् is अकः. So अक्वर्णात् परस्य परनिमित्तम् is achi. Savarne achvarne pare. So it has to be savarna, not any random. And understand that achi is coming as an anuvritti, so we are happily taking it. But the savarna of ak will be ak only. Savarna of ak cannot be beyond ak. Outside akka pratyahara cannot be a savarna of akka pratyahara. So yadyapi achi iti anuvartate, tathapi akkavarnasya savarnaha akkavarnaha eva. So that remaining part is useless, but we still take it as an anuvritti. So savarne achvarne pare ityukte savarne akvarne pare दीर्घः एकादेशः भवति. So dirgha samnyakaha varnaha adesha rupena vidhiyate. And there are many dirghas, a, I, u, which comes up is by sthanentaratama, which is basically obvious. A plus a will be a, I plus I will be I, and so on. So sthanentaratama ityanena sthana sadharmya tatra dirghadeshasya nirnayah bhavati. The question is not clear to me. What, Ratnakar Mode, what you want to ask? What 18 forms? You raise the hand and then I can unmute you.
That is Akaha Savarna Dirgha. First one is Purvanimuttam Akvarna. Then next also Achvarne Pare. So this Ak takes all the 18 forms along with the Paranimittam also. Is that so? Is that it meant?
And what?
When we...
So Pluta is out of question. Don't think about Pluta. We are going to talk about Pluta in the next class. But Raswa and Dirgha are all taken. So by 80, if you are want to say the 3 into 2 into 2.
Nasaka, all those things.
All those, but Pluta is out of scope. But other than that, everything is taken. Yeah.
Fine.
सो अक्वर्णात् सवर्णे अच्वर्णे परे पूर्वपरयोः दीर्घः एकादेशः विधीयते. So this is the meaning. And now examples. Avarna plus avarna will become akara. Every time, see, ad gunaha, I'm telling what is the utsarga. Ad gunaha ityanena guna ekadeshe prapte tadapavadattvena savarna dirgha. So a plus acha was basically the default is ad gunaha, that is being blocked, and akasavarne dirgha comes up. The ityari, ramashraya, and so on are the examples. More interestingly, E plus E karaha, that is not a part of this diagram. So Savarna Dirgha Ekadesha as an apavada of guna is only for A plus A. When it comes to E plus E, we have to resort back to Ikoyanachi and we have to say Ikoyanachi tyasya apavadatvena atra Savarna Dirgha vidhiyate. Because Ikoyanachi is E plus Acha or E, Raswar Dirgha plus Acha. As an apavada to that, you are getting Savarna Dirgha. So one part of akasavarne dirgha comes as an apavada of adgunaha. Second part of akasavarne dirgha comes as an apavada of ikoyanachi. So ivarna plus ivarna ityatra dirgha ikaraha atra ikoyanachittenena yanadeshe prapte tadapavadatvena savarna dirgha vidhiyate. Similarly, uvarna plus uvarna is ukaraha atrapi ikoyanachittenena yanadeshe prapte tadapavadatvena savarna dirgha vidhiyate. And same is with ruvarna or luvarna. There ikoyanachitene yanadeshe prapte tadapavadattvena savarna dirgha vidhiyate. I skipped the examples, you all are experts, but let me just for completion speak them. Shachindraha, Nadindraha, Girishaha, Shrishaha, and so on. For Ukara, Bhanudaya, Bhudaya, Shishuti, Vadhuti, and so on. For Ru Varna and Lu Varna, you can have even more dynamic combinations because Rulu Varna yoho mithas savaranyam vacham. So Ru can happily combine with Lu or Lu can happily combine with Ru. So Ru Varna or Lu Varna plus Ru Varna or Lu Varna. Dirgha is always Dirgha Rukara because there is no Dirgha Lukara in Sanskrit. So Dirgha Rukara is always the Rukar, Dirgha Rukara is always the Adesha. But the individual components can be either Lu or Ru. So Ruluvarnayor mithasavaranyam vach Ruluvarnayoho mithasavaranyam vacham ittenena Ruluvarnayor madhye savaranyam vartate ataha Ruvarnat Luvarne pare Luvarnat Uvarne cha pare Dirgha Rukaraha eva adesha rupena vidhiyate yanadeshasya ayam apavadaha. So Pitrunam, Pitrukaraha, and so on. I have listed down all possible combinations. And remember, again, this is another place where people have seen them confused. Akaha savarne dirghaha. You cannot go beyond akaha. So this is the part of the dalakrutyam. Akaha ityasmad bhinnam. H iti asti. So A plus A or O plus O, Au plus Au, there is no savarna dirgha. So 1A plus A tasmin, it is not savarna dirgha. It is normal Ho yavayavaha 1A tasmin. Similarly, sadhau plus auchityam, there is no savarna dirgha, it is sadhav auchityam. So remember, if you go back to this particular diagram, at the top level, there were three categories: Yanadesha, Yantavantadesha, and then the Chaturvidha Ekadesha, which is represented as Guna Ekadesha at the top level. So for all practical purposes, let's say this is Guna Ekadesha. So at the top level, there are three important types of Achsandhis: Yanadesha, Yantavantadesha, and Guna Ekadesha. यणादेशस्य अपवादरूपेण अकस्सवर्णे दीर्घा इति प्रवर्तते. गुण एकादेशस्य अपवादत्वेन अकस्सवर्णे दीर्घा इति प्रवर्तते. परंतु यान्तवान्तादेशस्य अपवादत्वेन अकस्सवर्णे दीर्घा इति न प्रवर्तते because a k only restricts it to till the lukara, whereas h starts beyond that. So यान्तवान्तादेशस्य अपवादः अकस्सवर्णे दीर्घा इति नास्ति, परंतु यणादेशस्य गुणादेशस्य च अपवादः अकस्सवर्णे दीर्घः इति अवश्यम् अस्ति. So that completes the discussion of akassavarne dirgha. So that's the second sutram out of the 6. Let's go to the next third one. Vriddhirechi. Again simple one. Avarnad echi pare purva parayoho vriddhirekadeshasya samhitayam. So vriddhihi echi at ityukte avarnad ad guna ityasmat tasya anuvritti bhavati. 6187 number is wrong. Samhitayam ekaha purva parayoho iti adhikaraha. आत एच संहितायां पूर्वपरयोः एकः वृद्धिः आत इति पूर्वनिमित्तम एच इति परनिमित्तम. नाउ यू ऑल नो देयर इज नो नीड टू रिपीट एनी ऑफ दीस. अवर्णात् एच वर्णे परे पूर्वपरयोः एकः वृद्धि एकादेशः भवति गुणापवादः. उचितस्य चय वर्णस्य चयनं स्थानेन्तरतम इत्यनेन भवति. So avarna plus ekara or aikara, you get aikara as the vriddhi samnya. Avarna plus okara or aukara, you get aukara as the vriddhi samnya. So that's all about vriddhi rechi. I'm just skipping it because you already know there is nothing new in case of vriddhi rechi. So that completes vriddhi rechi. Now more interesting parts start, which are apavadas of apavadas and so on. So we are done with this avarna plus h varna vriddhi rechi. The next one is this, hopefully pararupa. Which one is this? Pararupa ekadesha. So now we are going to talk about this pararupa ekadesha. Let me remind so that the sutra will be easier to understand. Upasarganta avarna like pra plus any dhatvadi eng varna like ejate, you will get pararupa ekadesha. So guna is vriddhi is being blocked by pararupa ekadesha. So engi ityukte eng varne pare pararupam bhavati. आद उपसर्गात इत्युक्ते अवर्णांत उपसर्गात इत्युक्ते ह्रस्वकारांत और दीर्घकारांत उपसर्गात एंगादौ धातौ परे. धातु means dhatu rupe pare. You cannot just have dhatu over there, it has to be some dhatu rupa. So engadau dhatu rupe pare, but the vritti says dhatu, so you have to say dhatu. These descriptions are not created by me, they are taken from selectively taken from Kashika Kaumudi or Laghu Siddhanta Kaumudi. So you have to memorize these word by words like this, but you have to understand the implied meaning. So ad upasargad engadau dhatau pare ityukte dhatu rupe pare purva parayoho pararupam ekadeshah syat samhitayam. So you can read up Anuvritti Adhikara and so on. There is nothing to teach over there. So ad upasargad engi dhatau samhitayam पूर्वपरयोः एकः पररूप एकादेशः भवति. आद उपसर्गात is the पूर्व निमित्त. This is a तदंत विधि. So आद इत्युक्ते अकारांतात अवर्णांतात उपसर्ग सम्यक शब्दात. So येन विधिस् तदन्तस्य, there is a तदंत vidhi over here. This is the reason why we have spent those 10 classes in learning the paribhashas and samnyas. I am going to simply throw the statements like tadanta vidhi, tadadi vidhi and so on, and you should be able to understand what I am talking. If you are confused, time to go back and revise the previous classes. So at upasargat ityatra tadante vidhi asti engi dhatau iti paranimittam atra tadadi vidhi asti engadau dhatu rupe pare. So even if there is dhatau, dhatu ityanena dhatu rupam apekshitam, dhatu rupam engadi syat iti atra आशयः. So अवर्णान्ताद् उपसर्गाद् एंगादौ इत्युक्ते एकारादौ ओकारादौ वा धातु रूपे परे. This va must be in the bracket. एकारादौ ओकारादौ वा धातु रूपे परे पूर्वपरयोः एकः पररूप एकादेशः भवति. पूर्वपरयोः स्थाने परवर्णः आदेशरूपेण विधीयते. वृद्धिरेचि इत्यनेन प्राप्तस्य वृद्धि एकादेशस्य अपवादः. So here are the examples. I have already shown the examples in that diagram. But pra plus ejate, a and a will combine to form a. So prejate. All that you have to remember is that there is an upasarga akaranta or akaranta upasarga to the left, and there is an ekaradi or okaradi dhatu rupam to the right. And then you can create whichever example you want. So pra plus a janam. I have given one example of tinganta, one of krudanta. So pra plus a janam prejanam. Para plus ejate akaranta. So para plus ejate parejate. This is a. So pararupam ekaraha bhavati. Pra plus oshati. Some examples of okara. Pra plus oshati proshati. Upa plus oshanam uposhanam. Very well known word. Para plus oshati paroshati. So in all these cases there is a pararupam that is happening. And that's all about this fourth particular sutram. Upasarganta avarna plus dhatvadi engvarna gives pararupa ekadesha. The next one is the vriddhi ekadesha that comes as an apavada of pararupa ekadesha, specifically for two dhatus ina and edha. The sutra is eti edhatyutsu. That sutra combines this middle vriddhi ekadesha and this upasarganta avarna plus ina edha and so on in a single sutram. So two important rules are combined in a single sutram. That's the next sutram in our sequence. So etyedhatyutsu, that's the sutram that we are going to study now. eti edhati utsu 6194 eti edhati utsu. Look at the vritti, very simple. Avarnat एजाद्योः एति एधत्योः उठि च परे पूर्वपरयोः वृद्धि एकादेशः स्यात् संहितायाम्. So padachhed eti edhati and utsu. Remember, the sutra has the word edhati. This is a way how a dhatu is represented in the sutras. Edha dhatu is an atmanepadi dhatu. Edhati is not a valid word. Edhate, edhete, edhante are the valid words. What you are seeing in this particular sutram, edhati, is not a tinganta form. It is a special form called shtip pratyayanta form. I will not go in the details for now. You don't need it. But there is a very specific krut pratyaya called shtip pratyaya, which is being added to the edha dhatu to create a form specifically for using the sutra, specifically in the sutras. So eti and edhati, these are not dhatu rupas, they are the representatives of the individual verbs called ina and edha. So eti edhati and ut, that is the specific adesha, because it is a saptami bahuvachanam, utsu iti kritamasti. So eti edhati utsu. At ityukte avarnat eti edhati utsu echi samhitayam purvaparayoho pararupam vriddhihi. So by the pararupa, so earlier pararupa ekadesha was applicable, that is being blocked by vriddhi. So eti is the inadhatoho nirdeshaha, edhati is the edhadhatoho nirdeshaha, echi is the anuvrutti. It can only link to eti and edhati. We are bringing the anuvrutti of echi from vriddhirechi. That only links to eti and edhati, because ut cannot be ekaradi or age pratyaharadi. Ut is ukaradi. So eti edhati is basically ekaradi. So essentially what we are saying is we are combining two rules. That's why this may be a confusion. What we are saying is for the ina dhatu and the edha dhatu, that the beginning letter should be h. Technically it should be h, but only examples are eng. So it should be an h letter or eng letter, whereas for ut it will anyway be an okara. So that's what this is being written over here. Eti iti inadhato nirdesha, edhati iti edhadhato nirdesha, echi iti shabdaha eti nochet edhati ityetena sah anveti. So eti echi means inadhatoho ekaradi rupe pare. Similarly, edhati echi means edhadhato edhati echi, typing mistake, edhati echi. So edhadhatoho ekaradi rupe pare. There is a tadadi vidhi in both the cases. And the final is ut, eti edhati utsu. So vah ut iti sutrena vah shabdasya vakarasya ut आदेशः कृतः अस्ति. उठ इत्यत्र ठकारस्य इत्संज्ञा अस्ति. तस्य लोपे कृते केवलम् उ इति अवशिष्यते. So I have explained all this. So what is the essential सूत्रार्थ? अवर्णात् इण धातोः एध धातोः च एकारादि रूपे परे or ut shabde pare. So a plus u, that's the middle box, and edhati and ina is the rightmost box. So avarnat ina dhatoho edha dhatoho cha ekaradi rupe pare no chet ut shabde pare purva parayoho ekaha vriddhi ekadeshaha bhavati, and then correct will vriddhi samnyaka letter will be picked by sthanentarataamaha. So udaharanani, very limited examples, because you can only give examples of ina dhatu, edha dhatu, or the ut, which is constructed from vah. So from vah or vah. So upa plus eti, upaiti. What is happening? On the face of it, it is a normal vriddhi. A plus a is I. But internally, upa plus eti ityatra vriddhirechi. Go see the diagram. Vriddhirechi ityanena praptasya a वृद्धि एकादेशस्य अपवाद रूपेण पररूप एकादेशस्य प्राप्तिः आसीत्, तद् बाधित्वा पुनः वृद्धि एकादेशः अत्र विधीयते. सो उप प्लस एति एङ्गि पररूपम् इत्यनेन प्राप्तस्य पररूपस्य अपवादत्वेन अ प्लस ए बिकम्स ऐ उपैति, पर प्लस एधते प्रैधते. And for uha, vishwa plus uha. So vaha is becoming uha, that's a separate rule. Vishwa plus uha ityatra a plus u again becomes au, vishwa uha iti siddhyati. And therefore, understand that this etyedhatyutsu sutram is combining two rules together, and therefore it is a combined apavada of two different sutras. So for the eti and edhati part, it is an apavada of engi pararupam, and for utha part, it is an apavada of adgunaha. So it is a combined apavada because it combines the two conditions. So that's what the Kashikakara says. Uthi adgunapavadaha vriddhi vidhiyate. So in case of utha, it is the adgunas apavada which is the vriddhi. Uthi adgunapavadaha vriddhir vidhiyate. Etyedhatyoho tu engi pararupapavadaha. For eti and edhati, it is the pararupa apavada given by engi pararupam tasya apavada rupena asti. And for utha, it is adguna, obviously because two different blocks are being picked up in a single sutram. So vishvauha ityatra gunasya apavadaha upaiti edhate predhate ityatra engi pararupam ityasya apavadaha. Any questions so far? There is one question, Vidyaji.
Okay, you can answer this even after the class if this is out of syllabus. But how do you do the prakriyas for these kinds of very complex? How do you write the prakriya? It would be good to do.
How do you write the prakriya? It's exactly how it was shown in the yesterday's class. So for example, it's written over here. So for example, if I ask you to write the prakriya of Vishwauha, at least in the current state, you start with Vishwa plus Vaha, you convert it to Vishwa plus Uha, and you write it in the words Vakarasya Dirgha Ut iti adeshaha. And then you further say A plus U ityatra guna ekadeshas apavadattvena vriddhi ekadesha ityedhatyutsu ityarena vidhiyate. And then you show it exactly how it is shown on the screen. So
you don't
towards the
need to
end
write
of
those
the
as,
course,
it's
sorry.
not like it happens and gets negated. You just write in one step as.
Yeah. Nothing happens and nothing gets negated. In one step, see, you can write it in short form by saying etyedhutyutsu ityanena vriddhi ekadesha. Or if you want to elaborate, you can say adguna ityanena guna ekadeshe prapte tad badhitva etyedhutyutsu ityanena vriddhi ekadesha. See, what happens is in the introductory sessions or in the sandhi prakaranam and so on, this vadhya vadaka bhava is easy to understand. As you go in more complex forms like Subanta and Tinganda, there are 10 sutras that are being blocked. So how many you will write? So you cannot say X ityanena prapte tad badhitva, Y ityanena prapte tad badhitva, Z ityanena prapte. So there you just write the final sutram. But because you are just starting to write the prakriya, at least in the Sandhi Prakaranam, I will recommend that you write the initial one, which is actually a guna, and then that is being blocked and what is the next sutram. That's all. Reshma ji.
My question here is that since this upaiti or praidhate, so these words were already in existence, and just for making them prakruti pratyay vibhag, are these sutras formulated?
Yeah, that is true for every word in Sanskrit. The words have to exist first, and then just to create a Prakriti Pratyay Vibhaga, all 4,000 sutras have been formulated. That is correct. But this question is not specific to Upaiti or Praidhate. It's for Ramaha, Ramau, Ramaha. Hypothetical sutras have been created to create Ramaha because Ramaha was a valid word in the language. Understood?
Okay. Because I just wanted to know because Rama, Ramau, Ramaha can be like Krishna, Krishna also, or Madhava. But here there are only specific few words. That's why.
No, there are not specific few words because, for example, what happens is praidhate. Technically, edhate, there will be like 100 millions of rupas of edha word which are dhatu, which are ekaradi. So you can combine upra with all of them to from praidhate, praidhete, praidhante and so on. So was a particular form like madhyama purusha dvivachana form of karmani yang luganta, was it in practice? We don't know, right? But the sutra will allow that to happen. So it's a general sutram which you just say that things, I mean, the forms were allowed, so a sutra was created to justify them. This is similar to Ramaha, Krishna and so on. Okay.
Thank you.
anything else? We're going to run a little out of time, but that's okay. There is one question I was expecting. See what is happening over here. You have to pay close attention to what's going on. Remember, see the diagram over here. We said upasarganta avarna. As an apavada to upasarganta avarna, that etyadhatyutsu sutra which was being taught, it should also have upasarganta avarna. You cannot randomly take anything on the left. Apavada means restriction. So upasarganta avarna ityasya apavada rupena upasarganta avarnaha eva bhavet. But if you look at etyadhatyutsu, the ut component has nothing to do with upasarga. You can say Vishwa plus Uha. So when the sutra is constructed, Upasarga part is not taken by Panini Maharshi. And therefore, look at how the sutra is written. Not Upasargat. Simply Avarnat Ejadyoho Etedhatyoho Uthi Chapare. So even though the required condition of Upasargat was there in that chart, we have conveniently ignored that, and not just ignored that, we used any random word for Vishwa, for Uha, for Ut. But when it comes to Eti and Edhati, I very conveniently gave only the examples of Upasarga and nobody questioned. So you should have questioned this, that there is no Upasargat over here in the sutra. Why Upa plus Eti is being given? Why not Vishwa plus Eti, Vana plus Eti, and so on? Will the same sutra be applicable for Vana plus Eti, and so on? Because there is no Upasargat over here. So this is a very valid question, and the answer is very simple. The answer is very interesting. Yadyapi asmin sutre upasargat iti nanu vartate. Technically, there is no upasarga anuvrutti because you cannot have that anuvrutti. You want examples like Vishwauha to be justified. So upasargat iti nanu vartate. Tathapi eti edhati ityetayoho vishaye upasargant avarnasyaiva udaharanani diyante. You do not give Vana plus Eti as an example over here. Why you do not give? Because Vana plus Eti will anyway be Vanaiti by the default Vriddhi Rechi rule. So the default Vriddhi Rechi rule itself is sufficient for creating Vanaiti. You do not need Etyadhatyutsu to do Vriddhi again and do Vanaiti over here. The reason Eti and Edhati are included in Etyadhatyutsu is to address the Pararupa Ekadesha issue. So in case of pra plus Edhati, so pra plus Eti or pra plus Edhate, the default Vriddhirechi was not sufficient because Engi Pararupam was blocking it, and therefore in order to block Engi Pararupam and bring back the Vriddhi, Eti and Edhati are included in this sutram. So the very reason why Eti and Edhati are included is only for Upasargas, and therefore you only give the examples of Upasargas. Other examples, they are already giving the correct form by Vriddhi Rechi itself. It is not even being blocked by Engi Pararupam, so that you don't need to block it further and bring back the Vriddhi. So यद्यपि अस्मिन् सूत्रे उपसर्गात् इति नानुवर्तते, तथापि एति एधति इत्येतयोः विषये उपसर्गान्त अवर्णस्यैव उदाहरणानि दीयन्ते. किमर्थमिति चेत् उपसर्ग भिन्न अवर्णस्य सन्दर्भेण वृद्धिरेचि इत्यनेनैव वृद्धिः सिद्धा अस्ति. केवलम् उपसर्गान्त अवर्णस्य सन्दर्भेण वृद्धिरेचि इत्यनेन प्राप्तस्य वृद्धेः अपवादत्वेन एङ्गि पररूपम् इत्यनेन पररूप एकादेशे प्राप्ते तदपवादत्वेन वृद्धेः विधानार्थम् अस्मिन् सूत्रे एति एधति इत्येतयोः ग्रहणं कृतम् अस्ति. अतः उदाहरणानि अपि तादृशानि एव देयानि, दातव्यानि देयानि. So you have to give examples of Upa plus Eti or Pra plus Edhate, Upa plus Edhate, and so on. If you give other examples like Vana plus Eti and so on, the argument is that it is by default solvable using Vriddhi Rechi itself. So that completes the fifth sutram, which is the combination of these two blocks. And then finally the sixth one, very easy, Upasarga Dhriti Dhatu. So look at the sutra list, Upasarga Dhriti Dhatu. So that's the last sutram, and I have already explained it. Upasarganta avarnaha and Dhatvadi Rukaraha. So earlier in the Pararupa Ekadesha it was Dhatvadi Eng Varnaha. Now it is Dhatvadi Rukaraha, and again you get Vriddhi. So the sutram is Upasargad Ruti Dhatu Ad Upasargad ऋकारादौ धातौ परे पूर्वपरयोः वृद्धिरेकादेशः स्यात् संहितायाम्. So आत् उपसर्गात् ऋति धातु संहितायां पूर्वपरयोः एकः वृद्धिः. आत् उपसर्गात् is the पूर्व निमित्तम, अदंतात् ह्रस्व और दीर्घ अकारांतात् उपसर्गात् सो तदंत विधि. ऋति धातु इति परनिमित्तम तदादि विधि. ऋकारादौ धातु रूपे परे सो अवर्णान्तात् उपसर्गात् ह्रस्व ऋकारौ ऋति तपरकरणमस्ति. सो ह्रस्व ऋकारादौ धातु रूपे परे पूर्वपरयोः एकः वृद्धि एकादेशः भवति. सो दैट्स दिस 6th number box गुण अपवादः. So see, I have always written this Vriddhi Ekadesha. Thanks for pointing. I will fix the slide deck. Somehow this is incorrectly fit in the brain. Vriddhi Ekadesha. So Vriddhi Ekadesha bhavati gunasya apavadaha. So avarna ru varnayoho sthane. So now you have a and you have upasarga rukaradi dhatu. So you have a or a and you have rukaradi dhatu. So the Vriddhi of a and ru together will be a and again it will be r par. So r will come as the final adesha. So even for upasarga adruti dhatu you have urandra paraha coming in the picture. So here udaharanani pla plus ruchhati, a plus ru etayoho vruddhi ekadeshe krute. The only choices are a, I and au. I doesn't have murdha, au doesn't have murdha, so both are out. A has kantha, but it will accompanied by repha because of urandra paraha. ऋकारस्य स्थाने विधीयमानः आकारः रपरः सन एव प्रवर्तते. So r the entire sthanas match. So pl plus ruchhati prarchati. Pl plus runa dhatu asti ruta iti rupam. Runa plus kt ruta, it will be prarta. Pl plus runati will be para. Sorry, para plus runati pararnati. So r iti adesha bhavati. Let's do the quick dalakrutyam and then we'll stop. उपसर्गात् इति किमर्थम? See, उपसर्गाद् रुति धातु. So उपसर्गात् इति किमर्थम? उपसर्गः नास्ति चेत् अस्य सूत्रस्य प्रसक्तिः नास्ति. So माला plus रुच्छति. This is not the उपसर्गात् रुति धातु सूत्रम. Normal guna will happen. मालर्च्छति. So this is not मालार्च्छति. This is मालर्च्छति. वृद्धि न भवति अपितु गुण एकादेश इति विधीयते. रुति इति तपरकरणं किमर्थम? If you have a nama dhatu called rikariyati with the dirgha rukara, this is a nama dhatu, it is starting with dirgha rukara. So taparakaranam ruti iti kritam asti, ata rikariyati ityasya sandarbhena api idam sutram na pravartate guna ekadesha eva bhavati prarkariyati. Otherwise it would have been prarkariyati, but now there is no vruddhi, the guna is the default, so prarkariyati. And finally, upasargat is done, ruti is done, dhatau iti kimartham. So, dhatu ityukte dhatu rupe. Dhatu can be whatever you want. Dhatu rupam must be rukaradi. So, very interesting example. If you take this pra plus iryati. What is iryati? Iryati is the lat lakara prathama purusha ekvachan of the ru dhatu of juhotyadi gana. तृतीय गणस्य रु इति धातुः अस्ति तस्य प्रथम पुरुष एकवचन लट् लकारे इर्यति इति भवति. So it is technically रुकारादि धातु, but are you seeing the rukara? No, the dhatu rupa that you are saying is ikaradi. So pl plus iryati इत्यत्र यद्यपि मूलः धातुः रुकारादिः अस्ति तथापि प्रक्रियायां दृश्यमानं धातुरूपं रुकारादिः नास्ति. अस्यां स्थितौ इदं सूत्रं न प्रवर्तते. So even though the sutra says dhatu, remember that on the previous slide itself I clarified that it is not dhatu, it is dhatu is technically indicating dhatu rupam. So dhatu ittenena dhatu rupe pare iti atra apekshitam. So anena prakarena atra asmabhi asya sutrasya dalakrutyam api krutam. As somebody pointed earlier, you can further go with ruti and then show why not akara, akara, ikara and so on. That's a simpler part. The taparakaranasya spashtikarana was more complex, so I took it over here. So that completes the ekadeshas. Here is a summary slide. You can go through it on your own. Just to do a quick revision, we have eng of padantati, akasavarni dirgha, ette dhatyutsu, upasargadruti dhatu, ad gunaha and engi pararupam. So these are 6 eng of and vruddhirechi. So these are 7 ones. Enga Palakasavane Dirgha, Ityadhatyutsu, Upasargadridhatu, Adgunaha, Engi Pararupam, and Vriddhideshi. So these are all the sutras that we discussed in today's class. 6 sutras we discussed in this chart, and 1 sutra we discussed earlier. That's Enga Padantati. So that's the total of 7 sutras. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then 1 sutra of the Adhikara. So that way we have completed the 8 sutras in today's class. Samapayamaha. Here is the homework. So first question, Bhagavad Gitayaha panktishu vidyamananam nirdishtanam kruta sandhi shabdanam prakriyam darshayata. So I have picked up 5 lines from Bhagavad Gita. Only the underlined words, there's sandhi over there. You have to write the prakriya for that. And adhodattani sutrani kesham apavada rupena pravartate iti savivaram spashtikurota. Simple homework, 10 days deadline. I'll post it on the classroom today. Try to finish it over the weekend. There is a question, a krudanta that starts with a ru for iryati will be included in the dhatvadi. Yes, so when we say dhatvadi, it is dhatu rupam. It can be tingantam or it can be krudantam. It should start with a rukara. It has to be of any dhatu, typically rukaradi dhatu only, but it has to be start with a rukara. I have actually given an example of krudanta. See over here. This is an example of krudanta, pla plus ruta. This is an example of krudanta. It can be either tinganta or krudanta. It should be rukaradi. That's the only condition. So that's it. Any further questions? You can raise hand. Otherwise, samapayamaha. So this way, my goal is in this course, as some of you might be thinking, I'm rushing. I'm not actually rushing. My goal is to give you an overview. So 10 classes for each concept. So this module number 4 is for Sandhi Prakaranam. So we talked about Atsandhav Purvadesha, then we talked about Atsandhav Ekadesha. Then I'm going to talk about Prakriti Bhava in the next class. After that, we will spend around 5 classes. Hal Sandhav Adesha, Agamaha, Shtutvam, Shtutvam, Dritva, Jashtva, Purva Savarna, Parasavarna. So 5 classes on Hal Sandhi and then 1 on Visarga and 1 on Rutvadesha. And this way we will complete the entire Sandhi Prakaranam. Srinivasa Mahoday.
नमस्ते महोदय, प्रक्रिया विषये प्रश्नद्वयम् अस्ति। यदि समयः नास्ति चेत् अनन्तरमपि
उच्यताम्।
तत्र यदा प्रक्रियायां यथा त्वा इत्यस्य स्थाने ल्यप् इति आदेशः भवति, तदा ल्यप् इति प्रत्ययविधानम् इति स्वीक्रियते अथवा आदेशविधानम् इति स्वीक्रियते?
So you are actually jumping a lot. तत्र त्वा इत्यस्य स्थाने ल्यप् इति प्रारम्भे आदेशः अस्ति, तदनन्तरं स्थानिवद् भावेन तस्य प्रत्ययत्वं विधीयते, अतः सः प्रत्ययरूपेण अनन्तरं परिगण्यते। परन्तु प्रक्रियायाः यस्मिन् सोपाने त्वा इत्यस्य ल्यप् आदेशः भवति तत्र आदौ सः आदेशः एव, अनन्तरं तस्य प्रत्ययसंज्ञा विधीयते।
अस्तु, धन्यवादः।
So all the tell me, उच्यताम्।
So आरम्भे तु आदेशविधानम् इति एव लिखितव्यं तत्र प्रक्रिया।
त्वा इत्यस्य लप् आदेशः स्थानिवद्भावेन ल्यप् इत्यस्य प्रत्ययसंज्ञा इति लेखितुं शक्यते।
अस्तु, अनन्तरं द्वितीयः प्रश्नः, गतकक्षायां ह्यस्तनकक्षायां तत्र पञ्चविधकार्याणि इति उक्तानि आसन्। तर्हि तत्र यथा अङ्गकार्यं तु प्रत्ययस्य योजनात् परम् एव भवितुमर्हति किल? अन्येषां कृते तत्र नियमः सन्ति वा? यथा तत्र प्राकृतिककार्यं सोपानेषु।
Open the PPT once again. Just 1 second. So before I answer your question, there was another question earlier, Prakriya Katham Lekhaniya. So this is how you have to write the Prakriya. In every step, elaborate as much as you can. If you don't know the Sutram, don't know means if I have not taught you the Sutram, you don't need to write the Sutram. You just write what transformation is happening, but complete the Prakriya. And wherever the Sutra has been taught, the Sutra has to be written. So that was about the Prakriya. And then you had a question about all the way in the beginning. इदं अस्मादपि पूर्वं अत्र
प्राकृतिककार्यं कदापि भवितुमर्हति वा? तत्र इत्युक्ते अङ्गकार्यात् परमपि भवितुमर्हति तथा किमपि?
प्राकृतिककार्यम् इत्युक्ते प्रकृतेः कार्यं। प्राकृतिककार्यं प्रायेण प्रथमे सोपाने एव विधीयते, तत्र कानिचन प्राकृतिककार्याणि त्रिपाद्यां सन्ति, तानि अन्तिमसोपानेषु एव करणीयानि। केवलम् एकं वा द्वे कार्ये तादृशे स्तः, बट् बियाण्ड् देट् अन्यानि सर्वाणि कार्याणि प्रत्यययोजनात् पूर्वं भवन्ति, अतः प्राकृतिककार्यम्।
अस्तु, तत्रैव प्रत्ययकार्यमपि सामान्यतः आरम्भे भवति वा?
अयमेव क्रमः। आदौ प्राकृतिककार्यं भवति, तदनन्तरं पदकार्यं भवति, तदनन्तरम् अङ्गकार्यं भवति, तदनन्तरं वर्णकार्यं भवति, तदनन्तरं पदकार्यं भवति। तो अयमेव क्रमः तत्र सर्वदा प्रयोक्तव्यः। कुत्रचित् एकस्मिन् स्थलद्वये वा अपवादः भवितुम् अर्हति, परन्तु नो चेत् अयमेव क्रमः सर्वत्र प्रयोक्तव्यः।
अस्तु, धन्यवादः महोदय।
एनी फर्दर क्वेश्चन्स? So samapayamaha. So next week we will have regular classes. We are going to talk about prakriti bhava in Achsandhi in one class, and then we'll talk about the padante hal sandhau adesha in another class. There is one more question. Vidya ji.
क्षम्यतां महोदय, गतवर्गे किमपि दर्शितवान् गृहपाठरूपेण तत्र सा छात्रा किमपि आसीत् महोदय, तत्र किमर्थं तत्र विरामः दीयते प्रश्ने? सा तत्र विरामः आसीत्, तदनन्तरं छात्रा इति आसीत्।
Let me open the homework 1 second. अत्र विरामः न, space. This one you are saying. So this is a good question. So space is not to be confused as virama. So for example, if I write phalam with a dot and then put a space and patati, are you going to create a virama over there? No. So space in writing has nothing to do with virama in speaking. Clear? Yes. पुस्तकेषु अपि फलं लिखित्वा किञ्चित् स्पेस दत्वा तदनन्तरं पतति इति लिख्यते, परन्तु उच्चारणसमये तत्र संहितायाः विवक्षायामेव अनुस्वारः सिद्ध्यति। संहिता अस्ति चेत् विरामः कुत्र? अतः फलं पतति इति युगपदेव वक्तव्यं, परन्तु लेखनसमये तत्र लेखनसौलभ्यार्थं स्पेस दीयते। So that's the point. You usually there are cases like this. Phalam patati is one case, for example. This is another case where traditionally a space is given because two words as separate entities are being shown, but there will be samhita over there by default. Anything else? अस्तु, समापयामः। अग्रिमसप्ताहे नियमितरूपेण कक्षाद्वयं भविष्यति। अष्टाध्यायी जगन्माता यस्य चित्तात् समुत्थिता वेदानामुपकाराय तस्मै पाणिनये नमः। शब्दब्रह्म समाराध्य कृतवान् यो विलक्षणं सर्वाश्चर्यमिदं शास्त्रं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः। येन धौता गिरः पुंसां विमलैः शब्दवारिभिः तमश्चाज्ञानजं भिन्नं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः। धन्यवादः।